Hello everyone. Today we will discuss another very important and a very interesting concept in psychology called as cognitive dissonance. If you believe one thing yet you do or say another thing, what happens psychologically? In the absence of any external justification for your anomalous behavior, the contradiction is resolved by altering your original belief. This is called as cognitive dissonance, and American psychologist Leon Festinger showed this with James Carl Smith in a classic study in 1959, which was known as the boring task. Before we study this very interesting experiment, let us understand what is cognitive dissonance. Whenever a pair of incompatible beliefs or decisions collide in our minds, it provokes a kind of mental discomfort known as cognitive dissonance. So, what is cognitive dissonance exactly? Let us understand that. Cognitive dissonance is a situation involving conflicting attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. This produces a feeling of mental discomfort leading to an alteration in one of the attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors to reduce the discomfort and restore balance. For example, when people who smoke, that's their behavior, and they know that smoking causes cancer, that is cognition, but still they are in a state of cognitive dissonance. So, this was first investigated by Leon Festinger. He did a participant observation study of a cult that believed that the earth was going to be destroyed by a flood. It was a very interesting study. Cognitive dissonance suggests that we have a very inner drive to hold all our attitudes and behavior in harmony and avoid disharmony. We don't want disharmony, we don't want incoherence. So, our system number one, that is our intuitive mind, constructs a very coherent and a very harmonious kind of a reality. This is known as the principle of cognitive consistency. Whenever there is an inconsistency between attitudes or behaviors, that is, when there is dissonance, something must change to eliminate that dissonance. So, this theory does not state that the modes of dissonance reduction will actually work, only that individuals who are in a state of cognitive dissonance will take steps to reduce the extent of their dissonance. This theory has been widely researched in a number of situations to develop the basic idea and to get it into the field of psychology. Let us understand this concept further. While at the University of Minnesota, Festinger read about a cult that believed that the end of the world was at hand. A woman, Mrs. Keach, reported receiving messages from extraterrestrial aliens that the world would end in a great flood on a specific date. She attracted a group of followers who left their jobs, their schools, their spouses, everything, who gave away all their money and possessions, believing that the world is going to end and they will depart on a flying saucer that, according to Mrs. Keach, would arrive to rescue the true believers. Given the believers' serious commitment, Festinger wondered how they would react when the prophecy failed. He and his colleagues, posing as believers, infiltrated Mrs. Keith's group and kept notes on the proceedings very promptly. The believers shunned publicity while they awaited the flying saucer and the flood. But when the prophecy was disconfirmed, almost immediately the previously most committed group members, instead of just shunning their beliefs, they actually strengthened their beliefs and they made calls to newspapers, gave interviews, and actively started proselytizing. So Festinger was not at all surprised by the sudden proselytizing and strengthening of the belief. Even though the prophecy had failed, he saw that the cult members, they are enlisting social support for their belief to lessen the pain of its disconfirmation. This behavior confirmed predictions from his cognitive dissonance theory, whose premise was that people need to maintain consistency between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Festinger's theory says that inconsistency among beliefs or behaviors causes an uncomfortable social or psychological tension, leading people to change one of the inconsistent elements to reduce the dissonance or to add consonant elements to restore the consonance. So Mrs. Keith's followers, they actually actively enlisted new believers to obtain social support and to add consonant elements to reduce the dissonance created by the disconfirmation. So in 1955, Festinger left the University of Minnesota for Stanford University, where he and his students, they launched further series of experiments testing cognitive dissonance theory and extending it to a wide range of phenomena. One of the best known of their experiments was something called as the boring menial task experiment. So, what was this experiment exactly about, and how did it actually explain cognitive dissonance? So, boring task experiment was an experiment in which there was an hour long monotonous task involving some pegs on a board, and students, they were paid, who participated in the study, they were paid either $1 or $20 to convince another person that the task was fun and interesting. Afterwards, the students were asked by a researcher what they really thought of the boring task. Those who paid just $1 said that they had found the task quite enjoyable, whereas the students who paid $20 said that in truth it was very terribly dull. Festinger's interpretation was that the students' belief that the task was dull clashed with the fact that they just told someone it was fun, thus causing very uncomfortable cognitive dissonance. But for the students who had been paid $20, this contradiction was easily resolved. They had been paid a fair sum, and that's why they lied. For the students who had been paid just $1, however, the contradiction was more easily resolved by altering their original belief. So basically, just to sum up, this theory basically says that when we have a belief, a very strong belief in something, and when that belief is contradicted even by facts, our psychology works in such a way that we don't want to accept reality. We don't want to accept that our long held belief is false, and that's the reason that our intuitive brain, the system number 1, which is mentioned in the book Thinking Fast and Slow, that system 1 constructs a very coherent and a very, you can say, a reality in which it is in harmony with the belief, even though the person knows that the belief is false and it has been contradicted. That is basically cognitive dissonance theory and how our psychology counters it. Thank you so much, friends. I'll be back with such more interesting videos.